Listen carefully, because this world doesn't reward the cleanest heart. It rewards the sharpest mind. Machiavelli never taught people how to be evil. That's the excuse weak thinkers use when they feel uncomfortable with truth. What he actually taught was far more dangerous than evil. He taught awareness. He taught survival. He taught how to stand upright in a room where everyone else is already lying. Look around your life for a moment, at work, in social circles. You'll notice something strange. The people who manipulate rarely look aggressive. They look calm. They look reasonable. They smile while rearranging the board against you. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. Power doesn't come from shouting. It comes from positioning, from patience, from knowing how people think when they believe no one is watching them closely. If someone plays dirty with you, it's not because they're stronger than you. It's because they understand something you were never taught. They understand human behavior without the comfort of morality. They know how expectations work. They know how reactions expose weakness. They know how silence creates pressure. And most importantly, they know that good people hesitate. Good people wait. They hope things improve. They expect fairness. They believe intentions matter more than outcomes. Dirty players don't think like that. They don't attack strength. They attack expectations. They wait for you to assume decency. The moment you do, they move. This isn't about becoming cruel. It's not about lying, cheating, or hurting people. It's about understanding the environment you're already in. Because refusing to see the game doesn't remove you from it. It only makes you an easy piece. Machiavelli never promised peace. He promised position. He promised clarity in a world where clarity is rare. He promised that once you understand how power works, you stop being surprised by people's behavior. In the next 15 minutes, you'll learn 10 psychological principles Machiavelli observed long before social media, corporate politics, and modern manipulation. These are not motivational quotes. These are mental tools. Tools that help you stop reacting, stop explaining, and stop bleeding energy to people who don't deserve access to your emotions. If you stay until the end, you won't feel louder. You'll feel calmer, sharper, harder to move. Drop this in the comments. I see the game. Law 1. Why good people become targets. Machiavelli noticed something most people never want to accept because it attacks their self-image before it attacks their logic. The people who get targeted the most are not weak, stupid, or incapable. They are good. They are consistent. They are transparent. They behave the same way in every situation with every person, expecting the same moral standard in return. And that consistency becomes a map for anyone who wants to use them. Dirty players don't hunt power directly. They hunt patterns. They observe who pauses before responding, who gives the benefit of the doubt, who hesitates to disappoint others. They watch who feels uncomfortable with silence, who rushes to clarify intentions, who feels guilty for asserting boundaries. These are not flaws in character. They are signals, and signals invite exploitation. A good person assumes shared values. They assume rules are mutual. They assume fairness is universal. That assumption is the opening. The moment you believe the other side will act the way you would act, control over timing, tone, and outcome. Dirty players don't need to overpower you. They simply wait for you to self-limit. Machiavelli understood that morality without awareness becomes predictability. And predictability is not virtue in hostile environments. It is exposure. When someone knows exactly how long you'll tolerate disrespect, how much confusion you'll excuse, how many chances you'll give before pushing back, they no longer have to guess. They calculate. This is why dirty players feel comfortable escalating slowly. They test with small violations, a delay, a misrepresentation, a subtle shift of responsibility. They watch your response. If you stay polite, they advance. If you stay hopeful, they continue. If you explain instead of observing, they adjust their approach. Each reaction teaches them how far they can go without consequence. Good people often believe restraint earns respect. Machiavelli saw the opposite. Restraint without leverage invites pressure. When someone realizes you will always choose harmony over position, they no longer need to negotiate. They only need to wait. The danger is not kindness. The danger is being readable. Dirty players don't fear ethics. They fear uncertainty. They fear people who don't reveal thresholds early. They fear those who don't rush to restore balance. They fear individuals who observe quietly instead of correcting immediately. This is why Machiavelli warned against wearing virtue on the surface. Not because virtue is useless, but because advertising it removes flexibility. When people know exactly who you are at all times, they know exactly how to push you off center. The solution is not cruelty. It is strategic ambiguity. You don't need to change who you are internally. You need to change what you reveal externally. You don't owe consistency to those who haven't earned trust. You don't owe clarity to those collecting information. You don't owe predictability to people who benefit from your hesitation. Once you stop assuming decency, you regain leverage. Once you stop filling silence, you regain control. Once you stop volunteering your limits, you stop being easy. Law 2. Strategic underestimation. Machiavelli understood that raw force attracts resistance the way heat attracts pressure. When strength is obvious, others adjust. They defend, they prepare, they close ranks. But when power is hidden, people relax. They expose themselves without realizing they're doing it. This is where strategic underestimation becomes powerful, not submissive. Dirty players are always scanning for threats. They don't fear aggression as much as they fear unpredictability. Loud dominance is easy to respond to. Silent capability is not. When you present yourself as fully capable, fully confident, and fully aware, others become cautious. They speak less. They give you less. They protect their angles. But when you allow small gaps to be seen, the atmosphere shifts. Strategic underestimation is not pretending to be incompetent. It is allowing others to underestimate your awareness, your reach, or your intent. It is choosing when not to correct, when not to challenge, when not to reveal understanding. This restraint creates a false sense of safety. People begin to assume they are ahead. They rush decisions. They over-explain. They show priorities they would normally guard. Machiavelli observed that impatience is a product of perceived advantage. When someone believes you lack options, they stop managing themselves carefully. They talk more freely. They test boundaries faster. They escalate without securing position. This is not arrogance. It is human nature responding to perceived dominance. The mistake most people make is trying to prove competence too early. They clarify, they justify, they demonstrate intelligence. In doing so, they shut down the flow of information coming toward them. The moment others realize you are tracking everything, they stop revealing. Strategic underestimation keeps the channel open. There's power in letting assumptions remain uncorrected. If someone believes you didn't notice a shift, a contradiction, or a tactic, they feel safe repeating it. Patterns emerge. Intent becomes visible. Timing becomes readable. What they think is invisibility is actually exposure. Machiavelli never advised constant strength. He advised selective display. You choose when to assert, when to withdraw, when to appear uncertain. This variation disrupts calculation. Others can't lock onto a stable model of you. Without a model, they hesitate. Strategic underestimation also disarms expectation. People anticipate resistance from strength. They don't anticipate patience from capability. When you don't react the way they expect, their script breaks, start filling gaps, they begin explaining themselves. They offer concessions prematurely. This approach requires discipline. Ego wants recognition. Pride wants clarity. But revealing too much too soon collapses the advantage. The goal is not to win early. The goal is to collect leverage quietly. When used correctly, strategic underestimation turns the observer into the driver. You're no longer responding to pressure. You are shaping it. Others reveal limits while you conserve yours. Others rush while you stabilize. Machiavelli understood that the most dangerous person in the room is not the loudest. It is the one whose full capacity remains unknown until it matters. The moment you stop correcting every assumption, you start controlling the frame. Law 3. Silence over explanation. Machiavelli warned against unnecessary honesty, not because truth is harmful, but because explanation shifts control away from you. The instant you begin justifying actions, motives, or decisions, you surrender authority over interpretation. What started as clarity becomes an opening. What felt like transparency turns into leverage for the other side. Explanations invite evaluation. Once you explain, others feel entitled to judge whether your reasoning is valid, sufficient, or acceptable. This changes the dynamic. You are no longer acting from position. You are seeking approval. Dirty players recognize this immediately. They don't argue your outcome, they dissect your reasoning, because reasoning can be twisted. Every explanation creates structure, structure creates angles, angles create opportunities. The more detail you provide, the more material exists to challenge, distort, or weaponize. Dirty players are not listening to understand, they are listening to extract. They wait for inconsistencies, emotional language, or gaps they can reframe. Silence operates differently. Silence offers no surface to attack. It cannot be edited, quoted, or selectively remembered. What remains unsaid cannot be reframed against you. Machiavelli understood that withholding commentary preserves ambiguity, and ambiguity protects power. When others cannot fully interpret your intent, they hesitate to move aggressively. Explaining also reveals priorities. When you justify, you expose what matters to you, what you fear being misunderstood about, and where pressure affects you most. Dirty players study these signals. They adjust future tactics around them. What you thought was honesty becomes a roadmap. There is also a psychological shift that occurs once you begin explaining. You feel invested in being understood. This investment makes you reactive. You start correcting interpretations, clarifying tone, defending intent. Each response pulls you deeper into their frame. The conversation stops being about facts and becomes about narrative control. Machiavelli observed that authority rarely explains itself. It announces decisions, not rationale. This is not arrogance, it is positioning. When you act decisively without over-commentary, others adjust around you. When you over-communicate, others test boundaries. Dirty players often provoke explanations deliberately. They question, imply confusion, or express mild disagreement, not to gain clarity but to prompt you into revealing more than necessary. Once you start, stopping feels awkward. The trap closes quietly. Silence forces others to project. In the absence of explanation, they fill gaps with assumptions. Those assumptions reveal more about them than about you. Their tone shifts, their patience thins, their discomfort grows. This reversal places pressure back where it belongs. This does not mean becoming evasive or deceptive. It means understanding that not every action requires commentary. Not every decision needs defense. Not every move benefits from transparency. Discernment replaces impulse. Machiavelli understood that the less you explain, the fewer handles exist for manipulation. When you speak only when necessary, each word carries weight. When you explain constantly, words lose authority. Power is preserved not by saying more, but by choosing when silence is stronger. Law 4. Positioning over direct attack. Machiavelli observed that direct confrontation is rarely the preferred move of those who understand influence. Open attacks create resistance, visibility, and risk. Positioning, however, reshapes outcomes without friction. Dirty players don't push you into conflict. They place you inside circumstances where any response works against you. Instead of accusing, they suggest. Instead of opposing, they frame. Instead of challenging, they arrange conditions that limit your options. You are not forced to act. You are guided into acting. And once you respond, the environment has already been designed to make you appear impatient, emotional, or unreasonable. Positioning relies on context, not force. Dirty players understand that perception is formed by surroundings, timing, and comparison. They wait until others are present. They choose moments when you are rushed, tired, or under pressure. They introduce variables quietly, then step back. When tension rises, they remain calm, allowing contrast to work in their favor. Machiavelli understood that reputation is rarely destroyed by accusation. It erodes through implication. When someone appears consistently composed while you appear reactive, observers draw conclusions without needing instruction. Dirty players don't need to discredit you openly. They let patterns do the work. This is why defending yourself loudly often backfires. Defense confirms the frame that something needs defending. The more energy you invest in correcting perception, the more attention you draw to it. Dirty players rely on this instinct. They expect you to rush in and clarify. They expect emotional urgency. That urgency becomes evidence. Positioning also works through role assignment. You are cast into a part before you speak. The complainer, the difficult one, the impatient one. Once the role is established, every action is interpreted through that lens. Dirty players don't argue facts, they manage labels. Machiavelli advised understanding the stage before reacting on it. If you don't recognize how a situation is arranged, you will mistake manipulation for coincidence. You will respond to surface behavior while ignoring the structure beneath it. That structure determines outcome long before dialogue begins. The counter is not aggression, it is composure and observation. When you slow down, you disrupt the design. When you refuse to perform the expected role, the script weakens. When you respond minimally, the contrast disappears. Positioning fails when there is no reaction to amplify. Dirty players depend on predictability. They need you to defend, explain, or emote on cue. When you don't, they lose control over narrative flow. The environment they built stops working. Observers begin to notice inconsistencies. Machiavelli understood that power operates invisibly when allowed to. The strongest response is often restraint. Let context speak without your interference. Let patterns reveal themselves. Let silence deny momentum.